When you think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, you think muscles, guns, the Terminator, oil, or at least I do. Anyway, regardless of what you think of him, the first thing that comes to mind is definitely not acting, which is ironic seeing as it's kind of his job, but does that change with this movie? Yeah, no, absolutely not. Jingle All the Way is a Christmas movie made in 1996 about a dad trying his absolute best to get his son the dream action figure toy that seemingly every kid in the world wants. Turbo Man. It's Turbo Time! This movie didn't do the greatest with the critics or the general audience, so I'm here to show you if those ratings are accurate or not. Does this movie hold a special place in my heart and that's the reason I'm doing this video? No chance. We start the movie off with a nostalgic action sequence in a show where Turbo Man saves a young boy. I'm coming, Billy! This show is being admired by Jamie, aka young Anakin Skywalker, or Jake Lloyd. It's clear that he desires this fictional character that is Turbo Man. Jamie exclaims to his mother that his dad is going to miss him receiving his next karate belt.
He misses everything.
Well, he's not going to miss this.
Ooh. We then get a clear implication that Arnold Schwarzenegger, otherwise known as Howard, is your typical busy businessman. Always answering the phone, seemingly never having a moment off the phone.
You're my #1 customer. Liz! Look, I didn't mean that.
He's on it so much that his secretary has to communicate with him through writings on folders like a toddler with flashcards. But even then, he's too busy to pay attention to what she's saying to him. Even when it's about his kid's karate class that he's definitely not going to miss.
I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it.
He's gonna make it.
How is Howard so busy as a mattress salesman? Anytime I've ever looked inside a mattress or bed store, there's always no one in there. So how is this guy's phone ringing off the hook? At the class, we're introduced to Ted, a pervy neighbour that's the biggest rip-off of Ned Flanders I've ever seen. He's even called Ted, for God's sake.
Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all.
Ted Flanders is currently trying to swoop on Howard's wife, even though he's clearly quite the neighbourhood minx.
You being such a handyman.
Sure, I've got just the tool for the job.
Meanwhile, Howard is going to make it.
I'm gonna make it.
But he's fed up of traffic and decides to drive in the wrong lane and gets caught by a police officer.
Make a take a license, alpha registration.
Howard explains that he's going to miss his son's karate class, but unfortunately the officer decides to use this information against him and decides to be a jackass and waste as much time as possible.
Recite the alphabet.
A, B, C.
Backwards.
Jamie manages to get his next belt colour, but sadly,
I didn't make it.
I didn't make it. Howard gets home and finds Ted pushing the line a little when he sets up his Christmas lights for him. Now some people would find this a nice neighbourly thing to do, but when it's done by passive-aggressive, overly joyful Ted, who's also trying to bone your wife, it's not met in the kindest manner.
What would I do without you?
Jamie is coincidentally watching a Turbo Man ad on the TV. Howard tries his best to apologise and make up with Jamie. He asks him if there's anything that Jamie would like for Christmas. How about pay attention to the fact that your son is constantly watching the Turbo Man show and the ads all the time and is obsessed with it? Howard has to push it out of Jamie a little when he tells him to not worry because he's already told Santa.
Don't worry, I got it covered. I wrote Santa.
How nice. Jamie says anyone that doesn't have the Turbo Man toy is going to be a real loser. And that's what kicks Howard's butt into gear. He doesn't want his son to be a freaking loser. So that also means that if you're poor and you can't afford it, you're also a loser? Awesome. So a good thing to remember is not to worry about upsetting your child with your absence. You can always buy back their love. Howard shows how great at listening men are when his wife Liz asks him if he picked up the Turbo Man doll. Howard looks confused as this is when we find out she asked him to pick up this doll 2 weeks ago.
Because at this point, they'd probably be impossible to find.
Howard tells Liz that he needs to pick up the doll from his office as he stupidly left it there. It's funny that she doesn't find this at all suspicious after the shocked look that he gave her last night when she mentioned it. Jamie tells his dad that he just has to be at the Christmas Eve parade today. He reminds him of all the times that he's missed it, but this time Turbo Man is gonna be there.
Yeah, Turbo Man.
Turbo Man.
Yes.
Yes. It's turbo time.
Howard promises to Jamie that he will be there.
I'm gonna make it.
Outside, Ted shows Howard the rain is pretty great in this movie and I really enjoyed his genuinely annoying performance. Do not Google how this guy died. Rest in peace, Phil. Howard sets off on his mission to find a Turbo Man doll. Whilst waiting outside the store, he meets a very outgoingly angry mailman, Myron, played by Sinbad. This guy is also great throughout the whole movie.
If you the father who's working 24/7 delivering mail so you make an alimony payment to a woman that slept with everybody at the post office but me!
This guy clearly has anger issues as we see him just strangle a random lady. Howard and Myron get laughed at when asking if there's any more Turbo Man dolls available.
Turbo Man's only the hottest selling Christmas toy ever.
Arnold gets a bit angry and unleashes his inner Terminator. When threatened and asked where they can find a Turbo Man, the store workers tell him that the last one just left with a lady with a fur coat. So, the last one just left, but yet the whole store is laughing at them for wanting to find one? Clearly not that crazy if the last one was just sold, is it? Myron tries his best to slow down Howard, but he's met with the same attitude.
This is war.
So this scene you might not remember, it was in the original cut of the movie, but then it was cut for the DVD version. Howard manages to find the lady with the fur coat, and it's actually the lady who voices Lisa Simpson.
Would you like my phone number?
He buys her bag off of her without checking what's inside. The lady has Turbo Man's sidekick, Booster.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
Instead of keeping this as another present for Jamie or even giving it to someone else, he just throws it in the trash. Then he sees another lady in a fur coat with a Turbo Man sat so perfectly in her back window. I feel like when you know how rare this doll is at the moment, you wouldn't put it up in the back seat of your window, glaringly obvious for everyone to see. You're just asking to be robbed or for someone to follow your car, which is exactly what happens here. Pervy Ned tries to take his chance on Liz whilst Howard is away, in doing so showing what an asshole he is behind closed doors.
Go! Pipe down in there!
Howard phones his home and is frustrated when Ted answers. Ted does some really bad pretend eating of cookies.
Would you get...
Oh, Howard, excuse me, but your wife's cookies are out of this world.
What a...
Howard just wants to talk to Liz, but Ted is deliberately making this impossible for him.
So could you get her on the phone, please?
I think she's in the shower, Howard. Do you want me to go check?
No!
We then get one of the most memorable lines in Christmas movie history.
Put that cookie down! Now!
Myron tries to team up with Howard and uses the fact that he's poor as a guilt trip. Come on, Myron. You, poor? With those turkey teeth? I don't think so. Howard once again gets in trouble with the same officer that stopped him for using the wrong lane. The next store that Howard and Myron find themselves in are doing a lottery involving balls with the angriest host I've ever seen.
In accordance with the laws of supply and demand, the new list price on each figure just doubled.
Seriously, why is he so angry? They will announce the few winning balls soon and they will receive a Turbo Man doll. Sounds simple enough, but we have a Christmas movie to make. I just want to point out that I really enjoyed the use of the soundtrack in this movie. Let's track back a little bit to this scene.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire.
Yes, every movie in the late 90s to noughties had to have a montage, but I think this one stands out more than the rest because it really sets the tone and shows the emotions that Howard is feeling. They picked one of the most dreary and depressing sounding Christmas songs they could, which matches Howard's mood of being fed up and not finding the damn Turbo Man. Play some people laughing in his face and you actually have a decent montage. And this perfectly sets up the next door scene with Howard filled with pure desperation and frustration where he's willing to risk more because he's on the end of his tether. Then in this next door, when the balls are flying around, we hear it's the most wonderful time of the year, which it's supposed to be, which makes it even funnier when people are savages and stepping over each other and biting each other and even pepper spraying each other. Tell you what, Arnold might not be the best actor, but his line delivery is pure gold sometimes.
He got two! He got two! Get the mailman!
Howard chases the bounciest ball in the whole world and goes as far as chasing a little girl through a children's playground. Out of context, this scene is just mad.
Hi, little girl. Look what I've got for you. A shiny red ball.
He was fully prepared to squeeze a child's cheeks to make them spit out the ball. He may be an idiot and get caught up in the moment, but you can't say he isn't determined to get that doll for Jamie. I mean, hey, he got off pretty lightly with a small beating and didn't end up on a register or in jail, so he should be grateful.
I'm not a pervert!
The dodgy mall Santa tells Howard he can get the doll if he pays up. Howard, running out of option, decides, fuck it. It's clear to see that something very shady is going on in Santa headquarters. Howard feels like the entire operation seems illegal. The fake Santa wants $300 for the doll and Howard reluctantly pays up. This is where he finds out he's being scammed with a Spanish Temu version of Turbo Man. Howard decides the best course of action is to fight all the Santas even though he's heavily outnumbered. What a Chad.
Well...
The Big Show from WWE knocks out Mini-Me from Austin Powers and coincidentally the police show up. Arnold uses a plastic toy police badge and remembers he was in the movie Kindergarten Cop. Somehow this works and he gets off scot-free. Howard forgets to put fuel in his car, so now he just pushes it all the way from the highway to a diner and just leaves his window open. This guy's decision making is really questionable at times.
What's the reindeer's name?
I named him Ted, after my dad.
Howard calls home and Jamie lets him know that Liz is next door with the reindeer.
Let me talk to your mother.
You can't.
Why not?
She's next door petting Ted.
She's what?
Howard lets his stress get the better of him as he gets angry with Jamie on the phone going on about his Turbo Man toy. This of course upsets Jamie massively.
What would you know about keeping your promises? You never keep your promises. You never do anything you say you're gonna do, ever!
Howard doesn't bother calling back to try and get through to Liz, he just gives up and drinks in the diner. Myron asks for a peace offering as they have a heart-to-heart as fathers. Myron says that when he was younger he wanted a specific toy too, but never got it. Instead his neighbour got one and he turned out to be a billionaire, whereas Myron is stuck being a loser. This makes Howard envision Jamie in that same position, and this is quite funny to see him dressed in Myron's clothes drinking alcohol. Kinda like they're telling us that Howard thinks his son's gonna be a loser if he doesn't get the Turbo Man doll. Not really the best attitude to have about your own son. A radio station host says if you want a Turbo Man doll, you can call in and name all of Santa's reindeers. Myron once again turns into an enemy and breaks the phone cord as Howard tries to call in. The diner waiter takes this very well, as instead of being angry that they just broke the phone booth, he tells them the radio station is quite close and they could travel by foot. Howard makes it there first and manages to barge into the radio station without bypassing any security at all. Myron enters and the movie takes quite a dark turn as, I say this in all seriousness, he threatens them with a bomb. Yeah.
Any weapons on you today? Guns, knives, pepper spray, any weapons on you at all?
No, but the girls say I'm the bomb.
Well, not to worry, it turns out it wasn't a bomb, it was just a music box. The radio show host tells them that what he actually said on the radio was that you could get a Turbo Man eventually with a gift certificate, so there is actually no Turbo Man doll at all. Howard can't seem to get any luck as the same police officer stops him from escaping. Myron threatens them with another bomb.
So you know I'm not stable. Tell him.
This man is totally insane.
Thank you.
Howard takes this moment now to really escape.
Relax, Sparky. I was on the bomb squad for 10 years.
If you were really in the bomb squad that long, you would not just be picking up the package that easily, let alone shaking it around like that. Anyway, turns out that really was a bomb. Sadly though, it's a kid's Christmas movie and no one can die. So the cop just has a smoky face even though an explosive just went off in his hands.
Really a bomb? Just a sick world we're living in. Sick people.
Howard manages to get his car towed home after it was completely wrecked. I mean, I know he left the window open a little, but geez.
Oh look, here it is, car part D. Ah. Oh dear.
Howard sees Ted Flanders putting his star up on his tree, and this is where he draws the line and does the unspeakable. He remembers Ted saying earlier in the film that he already has a Turbo Man for his son Johnny.
I got a Turbo Man for Johnny months ago. It's nestled safely under our tree.
Feels like I'm wearing nothing at all.
Nestled safely under our tree.
Nothing at all.
Safely under our tree.
Nothing at all.
So Howard breaks into Ted's house and steals it. Yeah, it's really hard to root for this guy when he makes the decisions that he makes. I mean, dude, you're quite clearly wealthy. Like, look at your house. You know your kid just values your time. You could just get him a load of other toys while you spend more time with him, rather than stooping that low to actually steal from another child. Honestly, I'm so glad that carolers aren't really that popular in the UK. I'd really hate random people just turning up my house and singing until I open the door. I don't know, maybe I'm just a Scrooge.
Melon fucker!
Howard second guesses his actions and decides to put the toy back. Just as he's about to, he gets chased around the house by the rabid reindeer. He manages to set Ted's house on fire by a decoration falling into the fireplace. Is it normal to have a fire going when you're not in the house? Isn't that just like a massive safety hazard? Howard struggles to put it out, so he kicks the decoration head out of the window.
Muchas gracias, afición. Este para vosotros.
I mean, I guess it's better to smash the front window rather than setting his whole house on fire. Liz doesn't even want to hear the story that Howard has for this, which, you know, fair enough if you're angry at him, but I would just feel it would be hilarious to hear what kind of crazy story he brings up for this. Ted and Liz decide to go to the parade together. I guess Ted is just going to leave his house unattended whilst the front window is smashed. Does nobody in this town care about their property being vandalized or burgled? Howard has had enough of the reindeer, just fucking punches it. Oh god, this is honestly so hilarious and unexpected when I first saw it. Ted and Liz let their kids go and stand with another family they know. Although when they get there, it doesn't really look like they're standing with anyone. They don't say hello to anyone or anything. Why do Liz and Ted both have to park the car? Also, this seems like it would just be a nightmare to find any parking. In a big city like this with a massive parade? Nah bro, I'm taking the public transport.
Someone you can talk to.
Ted starts to get a bit too touchy and aggressive and crosses the line.
Enough talking.
Howard witnesses this and probably thinks his wife is into it. He doesn't see the part where Liz hits him in the face. Howard once again gets into trouble with the same police officer. In his escape, Howard gets himself caught up in a mix-up situation. People start undressing him and getting him into a Turbo Man suit. The original guy had a freak accident in rehearsal and now they think that Howard is the replacement. This guy gives Howard the rundown of his instructions, and for some reason Howard doesn't stop them at all. He just keeps grunting instead of actually talking.
And phone inside your voice to the proper
So now I guess Howard is Turbo Man. Well, I guess he has been looking for him the whole movie, so... Howard spots Jamie in the crowd and salutes him. Jamie somehow doesn't recognize his own father. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he's far away. The parade announcement states that Turbo Man can select any child in the crowd to receive a free Turbo Man toy. Well, what a nice coincidence. There's been quite a few in this movie, hasn't there? Howard shouts out Jamie's name in a thick Austrian accent, and still neither him or Liz recognize him. Just as Howard was about to reveal himself to Jamie, he gets interrupted by who else but Myron. Yeah, he beat up and stole the costume of the bad guy that's supposed to do an action sequence for everyone with Turbo Man.
Oh, shut up!
Was that in the script?
Howard and Myron have a bit of a fight, which of course the audience thinks is all part of the show.
Ta-ta, Turtle Man!
Myron chases Jamie up a ladder as he's desperate to take the Turbo Man doll from him. Even Myron being as crazy as he is, would he really make a kid climb up to the top of this tree decoration at the top of a building? Also, it makes you think how crazy Jamie is to actually do this. I know Myron really is trying to chase him, but surely any kid wouldn't think that this is so life-threatening to the point they're willing to risk their life climbing to the top of a building. Howard manages to knock Myron down with a boomerang gadget, but once again this is a kids film so no one can die. Howard catches Jamie as he's falling and finally reveals himself, because yet again, seriously, Liz doesn't recognize him until he takes his helmet off. How many jacked Austrian men are there in this city? She's very turned on by Turbo Man. Jamie is given the Turbo Man doll, yet he decides to give it to Myron to give it to his son.
You know, this is gonna make my son really happy.
Bro, you're going to jail.
I'm going to jail!
You chased a child to the top of a building and almost got him killed. Your son is not going to be happy about a Turbo Man doll when his father's going to be locked away for years. Jamie says to his father, "What do I need the doll for? I got the real Turbo Man at home." So you're telling me all this shit Howard went through was for nothing? I mean, yeah, it's a nice message that all Jamie wanted was his father's time, but, bro, at least take the doll that he worked so hard to try and get. I mean, I guess Howard should have got the doll because then none of this would have ever happened. Anyway, that's the end of the movie. Earlier in the movie, we saw how Jamie reminds Howard of all the karate belts that he had missed him receiving. Howard makes the point that he saw him got yellow, but Jamie makes it clear to his father that ultimately he will remember the times his father didn't show up, rather than the few times he did. And this is what's important to most kids in the reality of the situation. Kids care so much when their parents don't show up for them. Howard takes this on board, and this is the main idea that drives the story. Howard hears this and doesn't want to upset his son anymore, so he goes to great lengths in order to basically buy back his son's love, but in doing so realizes that in Jamie's eyes, his father's presence is the best present. For what the movie is, though, I think they focus too much on heartwarming moments when they have Arnold Schwarzenegger. They have such a potential to make more of a slapstick/comedy film, but it keeps going backwards and forwards and they can't really decide a tone for the movie. All I'm saying is when you have Arnold, you want to just bring the best out of him. I want to see more of silly Arnold. I just love hearing this guy's voice.
I'm not a pervert!
I'm not a pervert. Who else can say that line and just who else can say that line and just make you chuckle to yourself? Not many people. You really got to give it to Arnold though for trying his best, bless him. It's hard to play a role that you were definitely not cut out for, so it just makes me love him even more. It's also a large part of why Dwayne Johnson is so successful. He plays the same guy in every goddamn movie, but you can't help his attempts to just try and give an Oscar performance, even though he will never, ever get one. Sorry, Dwayne, I love you.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
So this movie gets a 3.5 stars from me. Be sure to check out my letterbox in the description if you're really interested in what movies I've been watching recently. And on that we conclude the movie and the video. This movie will be remembered for a long time to come. I believe it's set its place in the Christmas Movie Hall of Fame and can be seen as a classic for many people every year to watch. Enjoy your Christmas and make sure to check your presents safely when they're delivered in the mail. You wouldn't want them to be da bomb.